And so excited about my opportunity today. What I love about the XR community is that it's a community. It feels like early Web 2.0 or the early streaming YouTube culture, in that we kind of just invite each other to random dress rehearsals and stand up sessions and prototypes and see what happens. And I had the lovely opportunity from Sarah Reed, who's a production designer I've talked with throughout the quarantine. We've never met in real life. And she invited me to one of their open rehearsals for a production of Constellations, which was a play I was not familiar with, that they are putting inside of Mozilla hubs for the first time, which is very, very cool. I obviously have put a lot of different VR productions in versions of Mozilla hubs, sometimes what we call vanilla hubs, which is just out-of-the-box hubs.mozilla.com that anybody can use for free in your web browser to bring virtual reality to life. But then also, we've done like our own iterations of the code base to try to kind of customize some features and queues, but they are just using the features out of the box the way we did with my play Jettison back in 2020. And I went to a rehearsal last night. The actors were extraordinary. Their patience as well as their talent. They went through many technical hiccups, many kind of struggles and issues with the technology that was in the way of the performance, and I really admired their tenacity to stick through it. Hello, oh my gosh, so many comments coming through. Hi, how are you? I'm very well. And hi, is that a 3 smiley face? Thank you, Edgar. 3 smiles to you. I've never seen that emoji before. But yes, so we're talking about a dress rehearsal for a live play being done in Mozilla Hubs that I attended yesterday, thanks to Sarah Reed, a production designer who brought the show to life. And you can actually see their theater in Mozilla Hubs above me. I'll quickly try very badly with my mouse to look around the space using my mouse. So this is their theater venue. And the play deals a lot with kind of like parallel universes, multiple dimensions, kind of the what if of these two characters and their multiple storylines and what would have happened if they made different life choices and decisions. And so that is, I believe, represented by all these avatars up in the constellation, if you will. And then I just have my random, one of my random avatars down here to walk through the space today. Don't be confused. I purposely chose one of the bunnies because I didn't want you to think that was part of the show. So that is mine and everything else is theirs. And I'm just going to walk around this space because they asked for feedback, which I'm so tickled by and so honored by. Because I would love to provide just some basic insights into what they did and how they might get more out of the platform, or at least the platform won't be quite as in the way. First and foremost, you'll notice, I'll pop into VR here, you'll notice here I am kind of low down. There's all this beautiful kind of constellation and scenic design that's being done way up there. It's a very... they really are taking advantage of the skybox, which is so cool. But different headsets and different experiences load in different ways. So what you are seeing right now is the desktop view, which is where most people will probably log in because most people don't have a VR headset, especially in the theater community. So they're going to load in a little higher, and different headsets will come into the space at different heights based off of the participant. So the first and easiest thing to do would be to create a waypoint that would be clickable via the A button or via the space bar, so that both audiences and performers could kind of standardize their size. So I would figure out in rehearsal different kind of best practices for waypoints, so that someone could just click on that and it would kind of readjust their size rather than being locked into maybe not the best or the most optimal framing. On that same point, we're coming into this stage and it's very cool. And they've got some music playing in here, but there isn't really an organic onboarding process. And what's really interesting about these spaces is the ability to let someone come in here and kind of self-onboard. Oh, who didn't turn off their phone? It's me. To kind of onboard themselves into the process. And so what I would love to kind of see if they had time is a dedicated area that isn't the stage area, which you can see right here. This is their stage area. And so we're kind of dropping into the middle of the theater without any context, without any understanding of what we're about to see, without really our understanding of our role as an audience. So I don't necessarily know, am I supposed to move around? Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do for the show? They have a looping music bed that is playing throughout. But it's just it's a pop song that I recognize, which is a really lovely song. But it's not telling me necessarily anything about the show or my expectations. And so there's thoughtfulness that can be put into the experiential design of entering the space, and then the audio design of kind of helping me set expectations, get into the tone of the show, getting into the energy. So that's just one recommendation for how you can take advantage of these cool immersive spaces, with that same kind of conversation of like onboarding, choosing a waypoint for the actors. And we found this during Jettison. If you see me now on the stage, right? Hello, I'm presenting, hooray, and acting my butt off, but I'm very small. And I'm pretty much the same size as all the other audience avatars. So it doesn't allow me, the performer, to really take up space and stand out in the venue. And so it might be an opportunity to make the performer avatars 1.5 size or 1.7 or 2 times so that they really fill the audience's frame. Because when you're in VR, what's cool is you have this kind of one-to-one experience. Like, these feel about the size of my hands. I feel like I'm in my body, which is cool. You seem to be, I mean, you're a robot right now, but you seem to be about the size that I am. We feel similarly scaled in the environment, right? But if you're just looking at it on a computer screen, everything feels very small. It feels like watching a beautiful, stunning feature film with like a wide cinematic shot on an iPhone. And you just don't get that sense of presence and filling the frame. And you feel a little rude if you get up in the performer's face because you start blocking other audience members. So one way to kind of fill the frame with actors is to just give them a waypoint so that they can be larger than the attendees, so they fill more of the frame. And that way people feel like they can keep their distance, but still see the performer and see the experience. The other thing that's really cool that I love that they're using in this show is some of these avatars, let's see if I can find one, are clickable. So while the performers are performing, they will click on these avatars and turn into a different version of the character in the storyline or in the constellation of storylines, and they will then perform that kind of alternate universe. But it does take this moment. You'll see when I click to become somebody, I kind of blink into it, which is super cool how fast, I mean, like, it's the fastest costume change in the history of theater, which is amazing, but it is kind of uneventful as far as a transition in time and space. And in virtual reality, we can change time and space and place. And so what I wondered is, at a bare minimum, if there was some sort of sound cue, right? Some sort of audio cue to the audience that we were changing into a different dimension, that they could just use an audio cue to just go, this is, they hear the last line while the actors are clicking on this thing, bink, you hear some cool little zoom or something, I mean, yes, use that. Yeah, feel free to use that. Zoom. Perfect. But that would give the audience a cue to the fact that we are changing into a different scene, dimension, version of the characters, which could be really, really cool. The other thing that we could do is just have multiple little stages scattered around the space, and we could have to move through them or jump to them to indicate that we are transitioning to different versions of the scene. The other thing that Mozilla Hubs allows is we could actually change out this entire world, and the lights would go to black and they would come up and we would be in that new environment. And so there is an opportunity to make variations of these constellations so that the audience starts to understand that we are transitioning between realities. Another simple thing could be a particle effect. You can actually drag and drop props or elements or even particle effects into the room. You can also hit F12 on your developer console and use JavaScript packets to kind of like drop in some code to make a prop go to a very specific location. And you could have some sort of little particle effecty, lighty, gimmicky thing that lets the audience know, oh no, we're changing time or something. So it's just those small little theatrical moments or cues that would help the audience understand the transitions of the show. Because another thing this show does, which I think really works when we're in on it, is it has kind of a David Ives quality in that we repeat the same scene multiple times with different context. But in VR and in new technology, we don't know if the actors are repeating the line because it's a mistake that they didn't hear each other, which happens all the time in this medium, or if it's because it's part of the play. So anything that we can do to make those transitions and those repeated moments feel on purpose so the audience is really cued into that, to me, just in our experience, really helps elevate the show. In some ways, you kind of have to over celebrate the victories and like over spell out when you're doing something artistically so that people know it's not a bug or a glitch, especially if part of the gimmick is that things are repeated or disjointed or talking over each other or there's silence, right? You want to let them know that that's on purpose. We've done this in a variety of ways. We've even put like white noise underneath or music underneath so that people are hearing consistent scoring, even though there's a long pause or silence or a transition, just so that they know it's okay, your computer didn't break. We're just taking a pause on purpose here. The final thing that I'll say is that part of what I love personally about doing things virtually is the invitation to the audience. And in some ways, this is a play that is very much about changing perspective, changing context, changing the what if of how you might enter your own story. And there might be an opportunity to really activate and invite the audience to move around so that, because so often you can enter something like this and feel like, oh, well, I don't want to bother anybody, or I don't know where to go, or I don't know what to do, so I'll just stay here. And for me, it would be such a missed opportunity for someone to attend this production and watch it from the same seat the entire time, especially when, as an audience member in virtual reality, I can go to a lot of seats all the time. I can move around the space like I just remembered that I could do right now. Here I was chatting back there on the stage so far away from camera just because I got kind of stuck there. I was like, oh, I'm here. So in some ways, inviting the audience during each of those scene changes or moments, I can actually, scene changes, my air quotes in VR, that's an opportunity to let the audience change perspective or change lens or move themselves positionally in the space. And especially if then the galaxy had different textures or colors or tones or palettes, depending on which direction you were looking, it would then completely shift the audience's perspective each time they moved around the room. And then they would see a really new take on that next repeated scene. Again, just an opportunity to further explore the medium and what it offers. And that would be my feedback from kind of a very, very light touch, like I'm not trying to direct this play or note it to death. These are just very broad strokes on how to really take advantage to what already works out of the toolbox and really let the audience celebrate and enjoy this really cool piece that they've brought to life. My final note would be that the actors did struggle with audio, and audio is the first thing that falls apart inside of these experiences. First and foremost, I think that just knowing that using vanilla hubs, you are using free server space, you are using, free everything. You're kind of there on their generosity, which is incredible. But those experiences do start to break down when your audience is over about 10 people. And the first thing that does go is audio. So I don't know how heavy this scene is. It looks pretty well compressed, which is nice. Like I would bet that it's under 15 megabytes, which is incredibly impressive. I don't know how heavy each of these avatars are when they change. And sometimes when you change avatars multiple times or you add objects multiple times, they kind of persist. They kind of like cache inside of the headset web browser, and that can clunk up over time. We found that in early onboard XR, is that we, by the like fourth or fifth short piece, all of the things we had spawned in the previous acts leading up to that had kind of clunked up the space in the environment, even if we deleted them, even if we'd moved on. There's just something about cookies and web browser caching that, because we're at the mercy of the headset web browser, and this is really just a phone, it's just an Android, it does kind of catch up with you over time. And so I think that it would really, really be helpful to think about the design of this space, think about how heavy these characters are, and just know that when you're switching over and over and over again, you may have to reset your browser cache before each and every performance to really ensure that you don't break down audio first, because that is the first thing that goes. The other thing that we have found that has been really constructive is twofold. I'll put my controllers down so I can kind of explain this a little better. We actually use Discord. Oh no, my head is like way up there. Can this look a little more natural? Sort of. Cool. We have found that using Discord or some similar kind of backstage channel, if you will, we plug in with our headphones, one little earbud into an audio channel that we can always maintain a line of communication with our other actors and with our stage management. And that way, if the headset crashes, if you get logged out, whatever happens, you always know what's going on. Now, you have to remember to unmute and mute constantly, which is a little bit of a juggling act, but having that line of communication, especially to stage management at all times, is critical. One of my favorite moments in Jettison was Nikan Robinson, who's an incredible performer. First of all, he did one entire show where he was able to say, my microphone isn't working, but I can hear everything. And so the director read the lines into the VR room while Nikan just performed the gestures, which was amazing. No one knew he wasn't performing the play. And that's all because he was able to communicate what was going on. But secondly, there was a moment where he was having trouble with his headset and I was in the middle of a monologue, and he was able to tell me, hey, I've got to reset. And I then just stretched out that monologue. I really took the time with the beats. I might have a little improvisation on the side. It's okay, I know the writer. But it allowed me to fill that time for the audience, even in the middle of a live show, while he reset his headset. And so I think that just having that line of communication with each other, this is so isolating. This is so hard already. And it can feel so frustrating when you're doing your work to then feel disconnected from your entire team and your fellow actor. And so that's a really lovely way to just maintain some sort of community and connection throughout the performance. The other thing about that is that we, during Jettison, actually logged in both the way I'm doing right now on this stream, is that we logged in on both our headsets and on our desktop. And we actually muted our headsets and we left our microphones open on our desktop computer. And what this allowed us to do was, even if our avatar glitched or got kicked out, even if something was going wrong with our headset, we always were able to hear the lines in the room and respond. And so there were whole shows where an actor got kicked out of the room and was no longer there as an avatar, but was still able to stay in the scene with me, and we were able to read lines opposite each other. Obviously not ideal, but I will always say that one of my favorite Broadway productions was seeing Cherry Jones in Doubt, and she went up on her lines in the middle of the scene. And the second time she did it, it was clearly an off night, something was going on, and she just said, "Bring me the book." And the stage manager walked out and handed her the text, and she got a standing ovation. Like, for whatever was going on that night, she still just stuck to it. And for her, she knew the most important thing was to get through the scene, keep telling the story, not make it about her, and just move on. And it was still riveting because then she was able to focus on the story and the character. She still brought it to life. She just happened to be on the page for that scene. Then she was back in again, rather than getting rattled by the fact that something was going wrong technically in the moment. And I feel like when we're introducing so many technical moments, yes, it's not ideal to see a character get kicked off or out of the scene, but it's far more important to maintain that emotional resonance and that connection, especially when you're trying to do such innovative new work. So just ways to be able to let the actors do their best work, the technologists do their best work, to let the experience really celebrate what is working and focus on what is working, and then let the audience sit back and enjoy. Or not enjoy. It's theater. You are fully allowed to not like it. But that's what makes it exciting and new. And I feel like this is a really lovely production. I would love to see the best version or best expression of this production using these tools and this team. And I feel like those are just a few little insights into how we've been able to stand up work at Onboard XR and Jettison, and even my work with Ferryman Collective with Gumball Dreams and Welcome to Respite. We use that same Discord backstage trick. We do a similar thing with helping each other out with avatars in the moment. We've done things with avatar scaling to be able to make sure that like we are larger in the frame than the audience member or making the audience invisible. So there's all kinds of ways to approach this. There's no wrong answer because there's no perfect answer. But I was asked my opinion, and those are my opinions and thoughts. And I just think it is so cool that people are continuing to use these tools to stand up work. If you want to stand up your own live performance prototype using WebXR or VR, we have a whole community at onboardxr.org that has stood up, I think it's 25 different live prototypes in the last year. We've monetized the work of over 50 artists, and we have a thriving Discord that is all about building out these prototypes. We have a partially completed video series that I've put together that walks you through the process for you to bring your own creative practice into virtual reality. We are welcoming anybody at any time. And for us, we all learn every time somebody stands something up. So bring your ideas, bring your thoughts, bring your vision, bring your problems. I mean, seeing this production reminded me of some of the things that we've maybe gotten a little passive about or gotten set in our ways about. And I thought like, maybe there's a better way to tackle that problem that I will revisit on my next production. So congratulations to the Constellation team. I think they open next week. So I believe if you search Constellation Mozilla hubs, you might have stuff come up. Otherwise, I can put something in the description of these videos wherever they are. And yeah,